Well, welcome to our sixth and final episode of this virtual banquet that we've been having. It's good to have Alan Sutherland, our Chief Pipeline Officer, Tim Sturgis, our Chief Administrative Officer, Amy Wallace, who leads our Family Services team. Andrew Green is our Assistant Executive Director. Becca Kidd is our Chief Program Officer. Colton is our Director of Development, and Phil is our Chief Engagement Officer dealing with our volunteers. And Edson Solores handles HR and IT for us. And Tim Street he lives down toward in Vivi as he is working on his PhD, and their county has lost internet. So someone cut the line and the whole county's out. And so this morning he joined us by going to a coffee shop a little while away from home, but had to go back home, so he's not going to be able to join us. Chris Lowry is a friend and our newest board member at Shepherd Community, and Chris works, and I'll let you tell us your position at Ivy Tech, but has served in various roles. Before that, worked in Batesville, where he lives, and for the Hildebrand companies, and in strategy and government relations. Has served on the school board and has a lot of experience and understanding that what we're talking about today is jobs. This is what is it that we're moving the needle. If we really want to help folks with hunger, having a job that pays them a living wage is critical. And so, Chris, what's your title at Ivy Tech?
Senior Vice President of Workforce Careers and Adult Strategy.
What's the challenge facing the workforce and workers today?
Yeah, Jay, it's multifaceted, and I have to pull on something you said right before we got started too. You mentioned how I think you said so many things are interrelated as we all try to do the work we're individually and then doing collaboratively. And I think that's really important to point out and to note. And maybe it has come with age, but I've had this greater understanding, especially during the pandemic, that with good strategy, and thanks for pointing out, I have this background in strategy and I'm kind of a strategy nerd, that when I think about the big challenges we're all trying to solve, I'm convinced that there are essentially five sectors within society that have to come together to get the best solutions. One being employers, I'll just say business, education, government, nonprofits, and philanthropy. And that each have sort of distinct roles, but when they really come together, it's pretty magical what happens. And I think about that, by the way, in addressing the kind of challenges, and I'll get to those, but to also think of, Jay, ways in which we've worked together, right? We met when I was on the private sector side at a publicly traded company because we had a mutual friend who said, you should know each other. And then even recent work in the past several months with the Bridges of Hope construct, One America, Shepherd, Ivy Tech, support from our friends in philanthropy and in government, so, all of those coming together. So the biggest challenges, I think they're multifaceted and they're numerous. When we think about the workforce, we have a graying of the workforce, and I know that well. You can't tell for sure around the temples there, Jay, but I know it well, right? And I was just in a fascinating meeting this morning up in Tipton, Indiana, with Stellantis. It used to be Fiat Chrysler. It used to be Chrysler. At this just modern, amazing building. And they were sharing with me how they are taking high school kids, middle school kids, and elementary age kids down into grade K, kindergarten, and bringing them in and taking them through a series of things to help them understand not just what they might do someday at Stellantis, but at other places, how to think about exploring for careers, and just the basic notion of work. And that, right, that it's not only for purposes of, the commonly thought of economic reasons, but that work, and I would contend every person on the screen, although I know some of you better than others, they're intrinsic values we all find in work because it's fulfilling. It fills our minds and our hearts in what we do. So challenges, I think the graying of the workforce. We face a challenge in workforce and in the economy, quite frankly, that not enough people either feel equipped to handle what the economy needs. Maybe they feel left out. Maybe they are left out, and that again, me, kind of nerdy with numbers, but the labor participation rate, the percentage of working age adults who are in the workforce continues to drop. I find that really alarming, again, because work is part of that. It's part of that social fabric. It's part of civil society, and so that's a challenge. I think the sort of mismatch sometimes that comes. So if this hand that I'm showing, is the demand in the labor market, and this is the supply in the labor market, too oftentimes it's kind of going like this. It's not matching up. Millions of jobs, millions of people. Sometimes the people don't realize that there might be not only, I would say, Jay, not only a job that provides a living wage, but a gateway to the middle class. And that there's just this disconnect that's occurring, and oftentimes it pertains to skills. And I would also say those skills, I think too many people might be under the misconception that those skills have to be acquired over multiple years of some higher education framework, when in fact maybe they can be acquired incrementally in periods of weeks. Sorry, that was a long answer, but you knew you would get me wound up, Jay.
Yeah. So for the person who says, I see help wanted signs, why don't they just go get a job? What's the response?
Well, I think the response is multifaceted. I'll start with judging, but we could talk about that for a long time, couldn't we? Yeah. I'm pretty ill-equipped to do much judging. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that to a higher power. I think the challenge in that, again, is multifaceted. So let's say I'm the person, and someone's looking and saying, well, why doesn't Chris go get a job? There are 17 businesses in town, and they're all paying this, that, and the other. What's not considered is, the constraints on my life. None of these apply to me, but if it were me, it may be in this example. Perhaps someone doesn't realize that Chris doesn't have transportation. And, I split my time, as you well know. I work in Indianapolis, home is here, but I also live part-time in Indianapolis. So I kind of get to see a real variety of Indiana, which I love. There's no such thing as public transportation in rural Indiana. And then even in urban Indiana, as we know, sometimes it serves you and sometimes it doesn't, depending upon how that works. Nor may there be the consideration of other life challenges like daycare or elder care, or a whole list of things. The other thing perhaps might be that the sign that someone sees, and even the pay that looks really well with it, wouldn't fit the time that someone needs. Perhaps I could work, but it really needs to be from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, which is when my father worked the entire time I was growing up. So there are some of those dynamics. Clearly, the skills piece of it also plays into it. The financial side of it plays into it. So perhaps I could go get the job that today is going to pay $20 an hour, which, if we did that over the full-time cycle, which the Department of Labor says it's 2,000 hours a year, that's a $40,000 a year job. Excellent. Well, the challenge may be that that's really only for 13 hours a week. So a whole lot of those dynamics come into play. and then we have to talk about, where incentives might be in place that disincentivize me to do that. You can tell I made the distinction a moment ago between living wage and wages, and I would refer to as compensation, right? Even getting beyond the wages to compensation, which starts to consider the benefits that go along with it. Generally 30% premium to what we think of as, the dollar per hour or the wages. We have to think about the trade-off and that cliff that many of us have talked about for a while, because if I use my hands again for illustration, if with various means of support, I'm able to bring this into our family for purposes of living wage and so forth, but all of that in the marketplace where I see the help wanted sign only comes to here, I have to make a decision in this gap about what's good for myself and my family. So there are a lot of things there. And with that also can come the skills. Do I have the skills necessary to do X, Y, or Z? We all know the supply chain today, because we hear it daily in the news, is a challenge. And a challenge with that is not having enough truck drivers. Sitting here today at 4:45 on Friday, I could not get that job because I'm not qualified to, because I would need a CDL license. And frankly, I don't know if I would pass it or not. I'm not that great a driver, Jay. But right, so all of those things are factors, but I also don't think that they are. One of my philosophies is I often think things are not necessarily complicated; they're complex. And the distinguishing factor of that is, I think it's too easy sometimes to think, well, if we only came up with the math formula, all of this would just work. Well, that's just not the case, because I see 14 blocks on this screen, and the reality is there's not a single math formula that would work for all 14 of us. It's complex. But the complexities, can start to be reduced when we look at what the greatest challenges or barriers are. And again, this, one of my thoughts as a strategy person is, a lot of times I think you can reduce those to sort of the 80-20 rule or Pareto. What are the big rocks, that we have to remove or bring to that person to help them, get that good and promising job.
What is it places like Shepherd need to be doing? We have a partnership with Ivy Tech. We can talk a little bit about that, but what do we need to be doing?
Okay. I was waiting for a question like this. Well, first of all, you're already doing it to some degree. I'll use really quickly the Bridges of Hope work that we've done together, and we're just in the midst of figuring out how can we model it, et cetera. So for anyone listening, I'll give you a really discrete example, because I think it's just one way in which community and faith-based organizations can come together with educators and employers, supported in different ways, perhaps, and you can see me going back to the 5, by government and philanthropy in doing this kind of work. So the example is this. Last year, our college went to the governor and his team and said, we think we should leverage federal dollars to do shorter term training, not ask anybody to fill out financial aid forms or anything like that. You just need to use that money, pay for the training. And by the way, let us reach out directly to someone if they have been unemployed, or if they've been unemployed recently, or if they're things in the database that say they're underemployed. And the governor's team said, great idea, let's do it. We called that taking Hoosiers to the next level. What we found was that a lot of individuals who were, in that, database of folks who they were probably first to be hit by the challenges of the economy with the pandemic, were probably going to be the last back into the marketplace, and had a lot of challenges, underrepresented populations, living in poverty, just all of those things. And we started to realize, let's use the 01 zip code. we said to ourselves, and it probably was influenced by talking with you, Jay, that if we could identify students who we were able to reach for that training, who lived in that area, we knew from talking with the students that they would have certain challenges. We also felt that some of those things we could help address. We have something called Ivy Cares, and it's a way to support students with barriers they might have to be trained and educated. But the light bulb for us was, what if we partnered with Shepherd Community, reached out to those students and said, hey, first of all, we're here to help you, with any of your academic work, for the training or education you're doing. We've got this, it's called Ivy Cares, and here's some things we can do. Here's the person to contact. Here's his or her phone number and email and all that. Oh, and by the way, we know you live near Shepherd Community. Perhaps you already know them. If you don't know them and you sign these letters, Jay, here's somebody at Shepherd you can contact. Shepherd does this, from the food distributions to the flu shots, right, to all of those, even longitudinal things that you do. But organizations like Shepherd, community faith-based organizations, and I'm, overgeneralizing there. I think that's one example. Another one I know, Jay, that we're working on with you is to bring this kind of information into the neighborhood. My team at Ivy Tech is probably tired of hearing me say this, but whether it's reaching individuals in the neighborhood, bringing information to individuals, and so forth, I'm just here to tell you. And I maybe I'd get fired over this, but I know I won't, because Sue Ellspermann believes this too. Sue Ellspermann and I, Sue being the president of Ivy Tech, and I will never have credibility like you and your team have credibility in your neighborhood. There's trust, credibility, rapport, and to the degree that you trust us and what we're bringing to your neighbors, your voice in amplifying that or explaining or assisting or supporting it's just golden. And again, whether that's helping people realize what might be, what opportunities might be available to them, whether that's training, whether that's employment, or whether it's then coming along together to support someone in her or his journey. It's so hard to even place some type of value on that. And I've had this, Jay, a really just awesome opportunity over the last year to talk with folks not only in Indiana, but thought leaders around the nation. Was it last week? I think it was. I spoke with the National Governors Association. And when I bring this idea up, you can almost look at a screen like this because everything's virtual. And you can see light bulbs starting to go off in people's heads and going, oh my goodness, why have we not done this? I'll be quiet, but just a couple other things. Those are examples. Working with young people, bringing, we've begun to stand up a new career coaching model. And the more that we can reach young people to say, here are things that these assessments say you might find interest in. This assessment says you might consider this. But then having someone like a career coach, not just a counselor, but a career coach who helps someone figure out, what are the kinds of things I might want to do with my life from a work and employment standpoint, I think are enormous. So, again, I look at it this way, and this isn't intended to sound kind of crass, but those high school or middle school kids, you serve them. They come to your, they come to Shepherd, and we've got this solution over here. And it's just, to me, it's a matter of partnering up part of that complexity and saying, well, okay, let's do this with youth. Let's do this with adults. Bringing those things together so that, 1 + 1, I'll use One America because we've done such great partnerships with them. 1 + 1 + 1 = like 4.5. or the individual served.
I tried that math. It never worked well in school for me. But Chris, I'm going to ask if you're able to hang on. I want to talk with some of our folks. Amy leads this effort for us. And so, Amy, tell us a little bit about what we're doing and what that looks like and numbers.
Yeah, so with Family Services, our department, we work with our neighbors in finding jobs. But more than that, like what Chris was saying, there's other barriers, the child care, the elder care, the transportation. So those are, not only are we working with helping people find employment, but also the wraparound services. So it is a feasible thing for them. So they can get the jobs, to get the training. So we work with a number of different partners. One big one that we work with is Project Azul. We've gotten a few people through like their forklift training. And so one gentleman that I'm thinking of, he was able to go through that. He's employed now, which he's kind of one of a success story for us. He's gotten a job. He's now been approved for a car loan. He's getting a loan. He knows he's moving up that to more financial independence, and also within that a lot more pride in himself. But so with that, we're also working with when they get a job, okay, how much money you're making, how much, what are your expenses, trying to work with them on seeing a big picture of that. We work with Money Canvas private with that, as well as having an income support specialist that meets one-on-one with individuals. If people need assistance with resumes, we are assisting them with getting those things written up so that they will look attractive to employers. Practicing interviewing skills. Talking to there's one woman we had to discuss with her, like how she dresses and how she walks and carries herself. So there's from very simple, basic skills that for most of us are going to think is just common sense to, that's not for all of our neighbors. So working with them through all of those kinds of things. We work with them on trying to find out where their skills might be, what their interests are, and how to plug them into the right kind of training, either through Ivy Tech or through Project Azul or through other various partners that we have with work closely. Maryland's on the board is such a great reference for me since she works for Department of Workforce Development, working closely with Work One and different agencies. I just trying to again, my background with case management is you have to look at the whole. You have to look at everything. Like you're saying, yes, there's jobs down the street at Taco Bell and Wendy's, but does that fit the individual? Does it fit if it's a mom? Does it fit in with the kids' school schedules and those types of things? So working within all of that, we have to do some wraparound services with all of our neighbors. So working with, like I said, the employment, trying to find the employment, working with income supports, budgeting. How do you work? If you get your check, how can you make sure you don't get it? It's all gone by 3 days later. How do we work on those types of things? So those are some of the things that we do. Things how we record that would be we'd be watching credit scores every 6 months to do with the Center for Working Families. There's a program that we use that we can check and see how credit scores are going, if they're going up or down, or they're staying the same. Net worth, like the one gentleman, his net worth is going to go up. He's purchasing a car. So those are some things that we really want to work with. We can, and I'm kind of all over the place, and I apologize for that, but if they still need their high school diploma, getting them into Excel Center or Warren Township, or doing wherever they need to go, finding those needs and plugging the individuals in, and hopefully helping them realize not what we want them to do, but it's what they want to do to create that kind of an environment for them. A couple, I told you about the one guy that is getting the job. We have another lady we've been able to help to maintain employment through the Barrier Busters funds. We were able to fix her car through other resources that we had. We were able to get her bus passes so she could get to work while her car was in the shop. So she never lost a day of work. She never missed a day of work. She didn't lose any pay. Those kinds of services are very important to maintain that employment. So those are some of the things. I mean, that's kind of in a quick nutshell, but any questions?
Well, there is a question in the chat box from Rob. How do we help people keep the job? Great question, because it's not only getting, but how do we keep that?
So one of the things we are trying to do is following up with that individual at 1 month, at 3 months, at 6 months, finding out how those things are going. Is there additional training that they need? Any other supports any of the supports that they might need that they find out once they're in there? They may need, some training with Word or Excel or something like that, getting them into things of that nature. If they get into a position that they just do not like, the goal is, by connecting with them on a regular basis, would be that we can catch that hopefully before that happens and talk them through, or maybe work with them on, okay, if this isn't going to work, can you hold on to it until we can find something else so you're not going to no employment at all, that we can kind of bridge that until you can get to something else. So that is one of the big ways that we are trying to help maintain. And Jay and I were talking earlier, like right now within the year, we've probably had over probably in the mid 50s as far as people placed into jobs. Currently, but there's people that fall through those cracks. We're probably in the mid to upper 40s-ish as far as those currently working, from what I can gather from our conversations with individuals. So that does kind of come up and down. But yeah, so that's the goal, is to help them maintain a job, and then eventually work with them on getting a better job, and then eventually through a career through different types of training and things like that. So,
yeah, the state talks about ABC, a job, better job, career. And we're actually investigating a program out of Cincinnati called Jobs Plus. And it's part of City Gospel Mission in Cincinnati. And they're really focused on this idea of ongoing support, similar to like an AA, where you're coming back and you're meeting other folks and processing things together. That ongoing support, which goes back to our 1 o'clock today, we talked about our neighborhood engagement. It's about relationships, and it's staying in touch, communicating, and then telling them, hey, if you have a problem, let us know. If there's a barrier, we have a fund called Barrier Buster, and what is it that you need that helps us keep you moving forward? You got to be in motion. I think that one of the we've been investing in Amy's team. So she went from her and one other. We've added a second, and we're looking to hire a third. And part of their role is this job coach, success coach. What is it that we need to do to help you be successful? And those assessments that Chris was talking about is so important. And staying engaged in a relational manner that says, when you have a problem, call us. And at the same time, working with employers saying, okay, when Chris is late to work, call us. Let's help figure out so we can talk to Chris. And so finding employers is another part of it.
Yeah. And having that neighborhood engagement, having the two departments working together, I always joke we really are still one department, but we're not. But those relationships that we are able to build is, to me, it's different than almost, well, it's different than any other agency I've ever worked with. And that keeps you engaged and know maybe the employment coach doesn't find out something that's going on, but somebody in neighborhood engagement. And so just that ongoing communication between the departments and Shepherd and our neighbors. So is very important. And you talk about the relationships with the employers as well. We have one gentleman who he's older. Actually, I should say he's probably not. He's maybe in his 60s. Sorry, but he was probably went through special ed. So cognitively, he's not. He's not going to get. He may not even get a job at Taco Bell or something like that. But we got him through a partnership with the owner of Lincoln Square down in Irvington. And he's working there. He works maybe 15 hours a week. He loves it. They love him. They have somebody who goes behind him and kind of finishes up for him. But another one of the Shepherd employees and myself had lunch there one day and talked to the owner, and they will do whatever they can. But then again, they know that he has support from Shepherd, and that if there's anything he needs, they can contact us. And so that relationship is very important as well with those employers.
Mike Smith, one of our board members, challenged us in a board meeting. He said, what about the operations of Shepherd? And so one of the things that has changed this year, we opened a year ago at early childhood, and Andrew, of the 18 employees, how many of them are from the neighborhood? Six. And we have an internal success coach that is working to remove barriers. And so sometimes they have car issues, and we're trying to help them find stable housing. We also have a partnership with Flaherty and Collins. They are an apartment manager here in central Indiana, and they're throughout. But they're taking care of our facility. So we hire a young 19-year-old kid. He works for us. They supervise it. They help us know how to take care of the contracts and do a CapEx study. And I wasn't allowed in the business school. I wasn't even allowed in the building. I had to walk around it. So, these terms like CapEx are not things that I know, but this is what they do all day. And guess what? We have better care. And in a year or so, by being trained at Shepherd, he can have a career at Flaherty and Collins in facilities. We're working with a company called Quest Foods to help alongside our kitchen, and Tim is working with that relationship, and they're going to train our folks so that we have some part-time folks, and I'm really excited that they're going to hire. They've already hired one of our folks. And they can have a career at Quest Foods, whether it's at U of Indy where they do, or at the One America Cafeteria, or at Brebeuf or Park Tudor. And so we're using our own operations not to save money, but to be a jobs pipeline and to partner with those. We're working with IPS to get some of their students from Arsenal Tech to work in some of these areas so that they can help us do what we need to do, but also to help provide them real experience. And then we're able to bridge them into a relationship with an employer who understands it. And in many cases, the training will take place while they're working with us. And that's taking our operations and making it missional. And so we're really excited about that and how that is beginning to grow, how we're helping. So we work with this place of higher ed called Ivy Tech, and we get neighbors and we help them get their CDAs at the child care center at Minnie Hartman, and then they can go to a school named Ivy Tech to get their associates. And Ivy Tech works with us because we say, hey, we'll pay for you if you'll stay here. And Ivy Tech makes sure that they get all the financial aid, not loans, but financial aid that they can qualify for, and we can make up the difference. So we're helping invest in them. And then we have a matriculation agreement with University of Indianapolis where they can go on and get their bachelor's. And so employment is also internal to us in making sure that whatever it is that we're doing, it's missional, and it's helping take people on a path, ABC, a job, better job, career. And we appreciate Ivy Tech also sponsoring tonight's session, and we appreciate that. Becca, as Chief Program Officer, Head of Data, what thoughts do you have for us around the jobs pipeline?
Yeah, well, I think Amy did a really good job with talking about what we do. When it comes to the data piece of it, Amy talked a lot about the different things we do to track success within her specific program. And we have success measures for all of our programming, but I think it's most easily and readily seen on a more consistent basis within the jobs program. And so using that data is important for us to see where we are having successes, where we might want to make shifts to change approaches, and use that to really track how we're doing across the board. And so Amy's team does a really good job of keeping up to date on all of that. It's sometimes an overwhelming amount of information and data, but her team does a good job of tracking that. And across all of our programs, our teams do a really good job of tracking that to really measure if we're being successful and making adjustments where needed.
Yeah, since we're employing some of our own families, both internally but helping externally, part of where we're moving with the data is these case conferences, where all of a sudden, individually, that student in our out of school time in after school is having a struggle, and the student that's in our preschool is having a struggle. And we wouldn't necessarily see that as a whole picture, but we're able to bring that together through data to see the whole picture, the whole snapshot of the family, and say, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this picture. Mom's missed work, and as we put that together, this will help us better serve our families. We use a program called Efforts to Outcomes, and it's not perfect, but it's helping us move and keep that snapshot. Is there any other questions that any of you have while you're thinking about that? My friend Phil Edwards, you want to jump in and share with us volunteer opportunities?
Absolutely. As you've heard, just first of all, I just want to thank all of you who are on this call, and in our desire to engage our neighbors in acquiring sustainable jobs. It is a great work. It's no easy feat, but we're making progress. We have a number of our families who desire to work, and they just need people resources. And I have a few opportunities where if you're interested, would you strongly consider it even opportunities for you to come alongside of our neighbors as they break the cycle of poverty in this regard. And so here are a few opportunities for you to consider. We're looking for job coaches. You heard Amy allude to this. We want our neighbors who are working to be successful, and they need that support, need people to check in on them. Also on a regular basis, employment training is an area, helping out with resumes and also interview skills, giving our people some tangible skills so they're able to engage in the workplace. And then thirdly, tax preparations. We do this annually and helping our neighbors with their taxes, Monday evenings and Saturday mornings. And there's a lot of information I've shared with you. And so here are some next steps for you. If you're interested in any way, in any of these regards, if you can just call our office at the center, 317-375-0203, or you could reach out to Donna Alexander. Her email address is donna@shepherdcommunity.org. Donna A as in Apple at shepherdcommunity.org. Thank you so much for considering this opportunity.
Okay. Well, we got some information in the chat box, and we hope that this has been helpful. Chris, thank you so much. Do you have any parting words for us?
Jay, I love the work of Shepherd. I put in there, you were talking about coaches, and I mentioned mentors. I tried to count while Amy was talking, and it hit me. I have 9 mentees right now. Who range in age from 18 to 62. I hadn't sort of paused to think about that. And the reason I mention that is that those who might be tuning into this, whether it's, as Phil was saying, that coach or stepping up to mentor someone can be so powerful. My own mentor, I'll be 60 in 2 months, by the way. The person who I consider to be my primary mentor is the person who introduced me to Jay Height, because he knew I was really taken by your commitment to breaking the cycle of poverty. And he said, well, I happen to know those folks. And I just share that because anyone listening, I would just recommend they consider the requests that you all have made tonight, including coming along the side of somebody else, because it's just, I know selfishly it's very fulfilling for me in being able to do that. And selfishly, it's very fulfilling for me to be able to partner with, through Ivy Tech or just personally with Shepherd Community, because the work you do is just is truly life-changing and transformational. So it's a blessing to work with all of you, and I look forward to doing more so as we move into the future.
And as we work together, we're better together. I would just share this also. If you're interested financially in supporting this area of the ministry, we are looking to hire another coach, and that's going to be important in this jobs pipeline. And so we're looking now, and that's a way that someone could financially help us in covering that cost. There's the barrier buster money. That's something that's very practical. It's helping us fix a car. Adam and Shane, our police officer and paramedic, met a mom who wants to work, 4 kids, brakes, metal on metal. And so we're getting the brakes fixed so that she can, find that job and not put herself at risk. I think Shane said that, she said, well, the brakes work sometimes. Well, that's not a phrase I would want for my daughter or my grandchildren to be dealing with. And so we want to be able to do that. So the barrier buster funds are important for us to invest, whether sometimes it's getting those steel-toed boots for the job that person's working. And you may know this, there is a little bit of money the state's giving out through these READY grants. I think it's only about $550 million, just a little bit of money. And we've been talking with some employers, because in the case of our community, we live east-west. Our neighbors, we drive east-west. Well, guess what's going in Hancock County? An Amazon fulfillment center, a Walmart fulfillment center. And so that's great. And Shepherd has invested in a company that Volumont, that's getting ready to start hiring to build these prefabbed homes that will be able to be used and fill. And there's a lot of need for filling in the gaps for housing. And but we're excited to be a part of Volumont. Employment is it's a great opportunity. We want to help people get a job, and as was asked, keep that job. We're able to do that together, and great partners like Ivy Tech. We appreciate you staying with us on a Friday night, and I hope you have a great weekend, and we're on the road to recovery. Won't you join us?